Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and for today's cards I decided to pull out an oldie but goodie favorite. This is the Shine On stamp set that Honeybee released quite a while ago. And this totally wasn't even what I was planning on making for my video today, but I pulled this out when I was flipping through, my stamps and dies, and I was like, and then the wheels started turning. And I started thinking about just nail polish in general and how they do, seasonal collections, of course, like with everything. And I was like, how fun would it be to make, seasonal kind of themed cards using the nail polish bottles? So what you started as one card idea morphed into two, and I started stamping the bottles onto this is just some distress watercolor paper. I'm just stamping on the smooth side with VersaFine ONYX black ink. And these are the pre-cut 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 pieces. So I figured before, the first time I used this set actually, if you flip the bottles, you can get 4 stamped perfectly, with room to spare, which I used for the little bows in the set as well. So I've got everything stamped. And then I pulled out distress inks to do my watercoloring. And rather than watercolor and then add shimmer afterwards, I decided to do the watercoloring with my Tonic Nouveau Aqua Shimmer pen. The first one was an experiment. I squeezed the pen first, which you're technically not supposed to do, but I was curious. So I squeezed the pen and got a good amount of shimmer going. Too much shimmer. You can't really see it on camera, but in real life, the color was literally like oozing and seeping through the stamp lines, and it looked horrible. So, lesson learned. Which I already knew, but sometimes you can't help yourself. You get told, don't touch the hot stove, don't touch the hot stove. You do it anyway. So that's kind of what I did. So I knew, do not squeeze the brush. Like, don't get too much of that liquid going. So once I figured that out purposely again, all I'm doing is smushing my little mini distress inks onto a little plastic palette here, and then picking up the color with the Aqua Shimmer pen and painting it onto the nail polish bottles. So it is shimmery, which in natural light, it doesn't look like anything, but at the end, you'll really see how shimmery this is. Now, you totally could watercolor this with just a paintbrush or a regular water brush pen and then add the shimmer after. My only peeve sometimes is anything like distress inks or anything water activated, like most watercolors. They do get reactivated with the Aqua Shimmer pen, which doesn't really like ruin anything per se, but sometimes it can just, it just changes the look when I'm like, really happy with the finished product, and then it's like, oh, it changes. So I thought, why not just cut out that step and paint it with the shimmer. Another option, if you don't have the Aqua Shimmer pens, but if you have Ranger's Perfect Pearls, mix a little bit of Perfect Pearl with water, then you have, a shimmery water that you can use to paint as well. That works just fine. I had actually thought I was originally going to do that, and then I was like, wait a minute, I've got my Aqua Shimmer pen, one less step again, works for me. So I did Halloween colors for my first kind of batch, and then my second batch of nail polish bottles, I did fall themed colors. And the lids I painted just with my water brush. I didn't use the Aqua Shimmer because I wanted just the bottles of like the color of nail polish to be shimmery. The lids I just wanted, just flat color. So the Halloween color lids I did with a mixture of like black soot and hickory smoke, and then the lids on all the fall colors I did with ground espresso. And then for the bows, I'm doing even more experimenting. I'm just using a little sponge daubers here and just sponging the exact same colors of distress inks that I used to paint the bottles. I am using that to sponge over these bows. I was just kind of curious. I wanted to, get a different look. I wanted the color to be a little more solid and intense than it looked in the bottles. So I started with that, and then I ended up going over it with Copic markers anyway. I did stamp everything with VersaFine ONYX black ink, and I personally do not use VersaFine when I use Copic markers. They don't play together nicely, in my opinion. But I'm not doing a ton of blending with my Copic markers. I was just kind of playing around with mixed media. I've mentioned this in other videos. I'm slowly branching out into, doing different things with my markers and with my inks and whatnot, and like layering things and just seeing what I get. So I sponged all those distress inks on top of those bows. Everything looks like a hot mess. I am going to cut this all out, so it's kind of irrelevant, but it does. It's just like, oh, everything looks horrible. I've gone outside the lines and made a mess, but it'll look fine when it's all cut out. So I just ended up going over these bows, like I said, with Copic markers. I just grabbed them at random. I didn't even pay attention to which ones I was grabbing. I just grabbed colors that looked similar to the colors I'd sponged on. I just wanted to intensify it. I wanted to give that smooth color. I kind of wanted the bows to pop a little bit since the bottles themselves are going to be really shimmery. I wanted the bows to stand out just a little bit. So I added that color with the Copic markers, and then I fussy cut out everything. I originally was going to use the coordinating die set, which I much prefer. Fussy cutting, since I did so many, took a while, but because I was so messy, it kind of defeated the purpose. So I fussy cut everything, and then I took my Memento Tuxedo black marker and went along the edges of all the bottles and all the bows. This is why I love coordinating dies, because it's just another long step that I don't need to do. But because I fussy cut, I used the black marker to cover up all those exposed white edges, and it makes everything look much more seamless. Everything, it really does, adding that marker edge. And I move fairly quickly. I don't sit there and hold the marker against, especially with distressed watercolor paper, because that just loves to soak up the Memento Tuxedo black. So if you ever find that, you know, when you're edging with the black marker and the edge of the paper is starting to look fuzzy, I guess is the easiest way to explain it, you're holding the marker too long against the paper. You just need to cover it. You don't need to like let it sit there and soak in. So I did that to all of the bottles, all of the bows, adhered the bows to all the bottles. And then for my sentiments, I pulled out the Happy Honey Cuts wafer dies, and I die cut some orange cardstock with just the word die. I didn't use the outlines, and I die cut that 3 times, and I'm going to stack those together with my Nouveau adhesive just to give it that extra depth and dimension. I really like my die cut sentiments to be stacked together. I just find it really does make a big difference. So I did that with Happy, and then to spell out the word fall, I used the B bold alphabet wafer dies, and I die cut those and then stacked again. Die cut them all 3 times, stacked them with the adhesive. And then to give the die cut words even more dimension, I sponged the same colors of ink that I used for the bottles. So I used Carved Pumpkin for this orange Happy die cut, and then decided to add a little bit of black soot to the bottom since it's going to be a Halloween theme. I was like, why not, you know, just make it a little bit extra. So sponged a little bit of that on. I haven't used sponge, honestly, I haven't used sponge daubers in so long, but I decided to start getting more of them. I want them for my distress inks and probably for my distress oxide inks too. It used to be back in the day before there were the mini ink blending tools, etc. That's all we had was basically sponge daubers or a makeup sponge. And it brings back, you know, memories using them again. And it's like, I like the control of them. So also I'll be jumping around between all my blending tools and stuff, but I like them. So I really like having that extra little bit of control with these. You don't get as smooth of a blend as you do get with the mini ink blending tool, but that's also why I'll be jumping back and forth. So I also sponged the, which one did I use? Vintage Photo. I used Vintage Photo on the fall die cuts, and then I set everything aside and I pulled out sentiments from the Hey Pumpkin stamp set, and I stamped the word happy and the word Halloween onto a couple of scraps of cardstock, and I stamped those with Ink on 3's Juicy Embossing ink, and then I am white heat embossing both of those. And then once those are melted with my heat tool, I'm going to die cut those with the 2 smallest of the Sentiment Banners wafer dies. So run those through my die cut machine, and that's going to create the sentiments for both of these cards. And then for the backgrounds of both cards, I use my go-to, like, never gets put away, the largest of the scalloped A2 wafer dies, because it literally, I literally do not put that die set away because I reach for it so often. It's the largest die specifically because it is like A2 size, and I just love it. So for my fall themed card, I die cut that rectangle from some craft cardstock, and then I lined up the bottles kind of the way I wanted them to be on the card. And to make my life easier, I used some press and seal to hold those bottles into place, and then that way I could peel them off, flip it over. I put foam tape on the back of all of this, peeled off the backing, and then all I have to do is flip over the press and seal, line it back up onto my cardstock, and these are all now popped up with foam tape, and it just saves me from having to fiddle and line up and cut foam tape for each individual bottle. So I'm going to do this again with the Halloween one as well. But for this one, to adhere those individual die cut letters, I'm actually lining them up along the little kind of stitch edge along the bottom of that rectangle. I just use that as kind of my little visual guide to get all of these letters straight, which wasn't too difficult because it's a small word, but still. Sometimes I swear I'm usually really good at eyeballing things, but I've noticed in the last few years, it's just not as good as it used to be. So I need all the help I can get. So I adhered those sentiments and those polish bottles, set that aside, and then for the Halloween card, I'm doing the exact same thing. Just lining up the bottles kind of how I want them to be. I don't want them to be perfectly straight. I want them to be kind of a little wonky. And then use that same piece of press and seal, press that down, flip these over, added the foam tape, flip this over again, lined it up. Then all I got to do is press it down, peel off the press and seal, and all these bottles are adhered, popped up with foam tape. Really easy. And then to this one, I adhered the happy die cut and then the Halloween little banner that I had heat embossed. And now I'm going to adhere both these panels to my card bases, which are heavyweight white cardstock cut to 8.5 by 5.5 and then scored at 4 1/4. So they're top folding A2 cards. And then for the inside of both cards, I had stamped and colored in 2 extra polish bottles with little bows. And I just decided to stamp the Manny thanks stamp from the Shine On stamp set. I love punny sentiments, and with these polish bottles, it's kind of perfect. So I adhered each of those bottles to the insides of each of those cards. And as a final bit of embellishment, because they're nail polish bottles and I can never have enough bling, I added a ton of bling to both cards. So to the fall one, I'm adding these gold crystals, and I get heavily sprinkled these all over the card front here. And I'm just going to adhere it into place with that Nouveau adhesive, just picking these up with my little jewel picker and then pressing them into place. And then for the Halloween one, I'm doing the exact same thing, just this time I'm using some ONYX jewels. So just kind of pouring those into my little magic tray here, and then I'm going to, again, sprinkle them liberally all over this card, because why not? So adhere those into place, and that's going to finish off these cards. So I'm going to turn the flashlight on my phone to kind of show the shimmer, and I say that I sound like such a broken record in my videos, but it really is. It's the Aqua Shimmer pen. It gives a glitter like you wouldn't believe. It's one of those ones that no matter what, you see it in video, you see it in picture, and it's like, okay, this is nice. In real life, it's so pretty. It's so subtle in natural sunlight, but as soon as you turn the lights on or it catches the light, it just sparkles like crazy, and I love it. So yeah, you kind of get an idea of the sparkle here, but even that, this doesn't do it justice. So, as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have links to all the supplies I use, so you can check that out below if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching and commenting and thumbs upping and subscribing. I really appreciate it. I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye!